Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Sales Scoop. This is a weekly live show for tech startup founders who want to improve how they sell. I'm your host for the day, Alistair Cole. I'm a computer scientist and ex-software engineer with 2 decades experience in B2B sales and marketing. And I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by Winnie Akadjo, founder of LVS Hub and an expert in live stream video shopping. Hi, Winnie. Hello.
Hi, Alistair. Thank you for inviting me on the show. How are you?
I'm very excited to get into all things live shopping, live streaming, and your experience in B2B, B2C, and B2B2C sales, selling technology products, which is what our audience is interested in. Can't wait to get into your sales scoop. Before we do that, I'd love to hear, on behalf of everyone else, a little bit of an intro to you, Winnie, and LVS Hub. Could you tell us a little bit about you and your journey, please?
Yes, of course. So LVS Hub is a live and video shopping agency which supports e-commerce brands and retailers to drive new audiences, to grow new audiences and drive sales through the use of live and video shopping technology, including TikTok Shop as well. So I've been building the business for the last 18 months, and it's pretty much like a combination of my experience to date. So for 10 years, I worked in the sales and marketing space. So I actually started off in retail, so in-store retail, where I did a lot of like perfume sampling, through to working on makeup counters in department stores. Following that, I then sold insurance for a little bit at Zipcar, as well as managing like unlocking cars and so on.
Okay.
I joined Groupon just after finishing uni on a grad scheme. And that's where I was really able to kind of grow my sales, particularly B2B marketing skills. So working within the London team and essentially prospecting and onboarding merchants all across London to like run promotions on Groupon. Did that for just under 2 years. Then I had a small sprint at Trustpilot. Following that, I then worked within, and then actually I did B2B as well within, so it was B2B to C for an airport app at the time, which was called Flyo. They were based in Germany. And that led me to then join a incubator accelerator where I essentially built a community of entrepreneurs that were able to build their own businesses within the organization. And through that experience, I then worked at TikTok. So working with creators to essentially go live on their TikTok channels. Did that and then worked with Farfetch to launch their live shopping channel as well, which was using software. So it was a completely different experience to on-site. And it was through the back of that, so it was a different experience to TikTok in the sense that it wasn't on social media, it was on their websites. And it was off the back of that in around January 2023, I was like, there's definitely a gap in the market in terms of educating businesses on like how to get started, the benefits of live and video shopping, how they can do it for themselves, and generate new audiences as well as sales and revenue. And that's brought me on to where I am now.
Amazing journey, amazing story. I mean, you mentioned some of the big technology innovators in this space, TikTok, Farfetch, really pushing the boundaries. I saw in one of your newsletters that L'Oreal had helped close £1 million worth of business through one of their recent, super brand day in the UK, one of its kind, like first live beauty event. Obviously, we've got two really big potential live shopping events coming up. We're just 10 days away, I think, from Black Friday and Christmas in a month's time. How are you expecting the world of live stream shopping to be different this year than it was 12 months ago?
So I think live stream sits on the spectrum of like video. So if we look at where video is, I think video has had a huge trajectory even in the last year so far. So we're now consuming a lot more video. In fact, everything that we look at on a day-to-day on a day-to-day basis is formed around video. And I think similarly, live stream as well. You know, if you remove the shopping component, live stream also has a very big presence in society now. So for example, we're on a live broadcast at the moment, which is being distributed across several countries around the world. I think it was only a couple of days ago, Netflix hosted their first live stream with like sporting. We're obviously used to like YouTube live streams and Twitch, you know, and there's loads and loads of platforms out there that are actually based off of the back of live stream. So I think sometimes we look at it as this new thing, but actually it's around, we consume it, it's actually a big part of society. And that's what excites me the most about live stream shopping, because it's almost just like the next phase of how people consume live stream content. So it's it's slowly growing in Europe, but as most people are aware, live stream shopping is extremely successful in China, where I think it was like 70% of like e-commerce transactions, global e-commerce transactions that happens through the country takes place through live stream shopping shows. And I think in the US, we've also seen it kind of grow really rapidly. I think the success of L'Oreal, generating 1 million in sales through their brand day, kind of replicates other businesses as well who've had the same successes. So we've seen, you know, I think TikTok has seen at least 4 to 5 brands now who have been able to generate £1 million in sales. So for me, I think it's just getting started, just because of the natural evolution of how society is now consuming content.
Thank you. And before we get to your sales scoop, which is obviously around the discipline, the practice of sales, right, and selling LVS Hub into other businesses, a kind of B2B sell there. As a bit of context for that, how are you? What are the benefits that the LVS Hub that you're talking about when you're speaking to potential buyers? What are the benefits that LVS Hub brings to people who purchase your platform and work with you?
I think one of the biggest benefits is domain expertise. So it's like, I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about. So I think a lot of it from like a theoretical standpoint. So I studied journalism. I had a really good understanding of like media and how society engages with media platforms and so on. From a practical standpoint, I was the fourth hire at TikTok Shop back in April 2021. So I was part of kind of like the very early inception of TikTok Shop before, you know, anyone even knew it as it is now. So kind of being on that journey and seeing a lot of the kind of like makeshift work that we had to do and a lot of the way that we had to kind of like sell it in, because it was still very much the same, you know, people weren't convinced, they didn't really understand it. So there was still a lot of like being able to sell it in from even like a TikTok perspective. So yeah, so I think definitely that. And then also kind of having the opposite experience working at Farfetch and seeing it on site allowed me to really see the value, because it's very easy to say, well, it's on TikTok, everyone's on TikTok, so that's why it's performing. Or, you know, it's this product is just going viral and that's why it's performing. But actually, when I was through my experience at Farfetch, I was actually able to see more of the kind of value add that businesses can get outside of sales and revenue, because sometimes we can go on so much about generating income that we actually forget all the other things that it can contribute to. And I think a big part of that is kind of like engagement, which is really important now. So actually being able to drive engagement and being able to be authentic in terms of showcasing your brand messaging, your product value, and all of those types of things. Building up customer communities. So actually the Farfetch live stream shopping shows started off as private client experiences. So it was an additional experience for their private clients before it was opened up to the public.
Yeah.
So being able to nurture your customers in that way and offer them something new is also really beneficial. And being able to kind of like analyze the performance of your content and how it relates to the products that you're selling. So even something as little like which colorways are getting the best attention, or which price point is best performing, but actually being able to use that data to make better informed decisions in your business. So there's a lot of different dynamics and lots of different kind of like benefits that you can get from live stream shopping. And I think that's why it's so overwhelming, because it's so easy to just feel like, okay, I'll do this and this is what I get, and it kind of shows me all of this. But when you're thinking about content, you're thinking about products, you're thinking about engagement, you're thinking about viewership and all of those things, it can seem like, you know, overwhelming. Hence why I think it's normal that the adoption is slightly slower than expected.
Yeah. Having spent most of my career, if not all of it, kind of at that cutting edge, adoption is a difficult thing to get over. People don't get it till they see it, and even when they see it, they don't always get it. We're going to come back to a lot of those. I'm keen to hear, without further ado, what your number one top selling tip is for our audience. Winnie, what is your sales scoop for today?
So I don't think it's anything new that no one has heard before, but it's definitely leads. So the more leads, the better. I think sales predominantly is a numbers game, which everyone should be aware of if you're on this call. So you want to be able to optimize and obviously kind of like increase your opportunities of bringing on board customers. And sales is also about pipeline management. So it's also about understanding that customers come in at different points of their own journey, and they can be converted at different points as well. So it's kind of removing the assumption that, if you have one lead today, they're going to convert like the next day, and actually thinking about how that conversion goes through. So for me, my biggest kind of what I focus on is generating leads and diversifying how I receive those leads. So I'll talk through some of the strategies that I use and how I find them effective. My best way is probably going to events or conferences. And the reason why I think this is a really powerful way to generate leads is because a lot of the time you get to speak to somebody within the organization. So you're lucky if you're speaking to the decision maker, but sometimes you might be speaking to somebody who's directly impacted by the problem. So in my case, it might be the marketing team, or it might be the marketing sales director. So you're able to obviously learn a little bit more about their brand. If you can, obviously test their products, build some rapport, understand kind of like the structure of the team, who you should be speaking to. And then when you follow up, it's just a little bit more, it's easier because you already kind of built that relationship. So throughout the first year of building LVS Hub, I went to a lot of events, and I think I've been able to generate over 100 leads from going to events. And that's definitely makes me more confident than like generic lead sourcing of Google or anything like that, because, cold emails and they've got such a bad rep at the moment as well. So that's definitely one thing. Another thing I think is referrals, or I guess tapping into third degree, second degree, third degree connections. So whether there's somebody in your network which works within a particular organization or is tapped into kind of like the businesses that you're looking for. So in my case, it might be a great example could be a business like Women Who Buy Women Built. So this is an organization that essentially supports female consumer businesses. So forming kind of like relationships, alliances, or receiving referrals from those types of organizations means that it's directly impactful and relevant to what you're building. So secondly, I would say definitely identify organizations, agencies, places where kind of like what you're looking for is already in place. Third, lead sourcing. So everyone's favorite. So once again, with lead sourcing as well, I try to always diversify how I do lead sourcing. So sometimes I'd look at directories. So finding, it could be let me have an example. So there's one business that I use, I think it's called 1-800 D2C. So they have listicles, lots of directories of e-commerce businesses, and it's kind of categorized across different verticals. So you're able to see, kind of get a clear understanding. You've got loads of leads and see actually what works for you, what's most relevant, rather than once again, just kind of like going on a blank search. If you're able to find directories or places where your customers are kind of being mimed, then it makes it a lot easier for you as well to find the leads that you're looking for. Another example could be listicles. So I think listicles are really powerful, and that's kind of tapping into written content. So it could be, for example, the top 10 best skincare that are out right now, or it could be the top 100 shoes of the year, or it could be etc. But these are essentially free leads that are kind of being presented to you. And at the same time, you can learn a little bit about the business, how they sell. They've obviously got a lot of momentum because they're like, being showcased in the press and things like that. And once again, it kind of beats like a blank search. Display advertising, I think we take for granted like how many ads we see just on a regular day when you're walking around and those types of things. So I definitely try to be strategic when I'm like looking around and see like, oh, this is a good brand, this is an up and coming brand. You know, I think Oatly is a great example in terms of how they use display advertising to kind of blow up their business and be able to gain a lot of customers. And there's probably a lot of small up and coming businesses that also operate in the same way. So being able to kind of spot those opportunities, spot those new businesses, and kind of like, I don't know, keep your eyes open while you're walking on the streets, I think is also really powerful. One thing that I haven't done in a while, but I did it the other day and I was like, why did I stop doing this? Is newspaper advertising. So once again, in newspapers, there's a lot of ads, a lot of businesses sharing like new features, new services, all of this stuff. And even magazines, you know, the last time I found myself going through Vogue and they had like a whole glossary of just like businesses across different categories, across different verticals, offering different services. And I was like, oh, wow, these are so many leads. So yeah, so I think that's the most creative ways that I've come from doing manual lead sourcing. I try to avoid manual lead sourcing as much as possible because it's not enjoyable. And I think one thing about sales is that you have to make yourself enjoy it, you know, because it's not, you know, for some people it's quite fun, for some people they don't enjoy it, but you can find a way to enjoy it. So for me, like going to events is quite enjoyable, you know, exploring different directories is quite enjoyable, reading through magazines and kind of looking at these things. Yes, it sells, but I'm finding ways to kind of like enjoy it, and that also leads me on to kind of like my final point, which is in store. So I think it was about weeks ago, I just started visiting, going to different parts of London and just kind of like going into stores and speaking to businesses that would be interested in hosting live stream shopping shows. Once again, I think we take for granted how much resources we just naturally have around us and how you can just jump on a bus to like Stratford Westfield and then you're surrounded by, you know, 100 brands and loads of new brands that you might have never heard of. And that's also another way to generate leads.
Yeah. Wow, like 7 cracking areas that we can dive into, right? I've got some it's interesting, the order you've picked, we'll get into that in a second. You're obviously like passionate about it and keen, right? And you've got different strategies that are going on. Were you always this excited about prospecting, or is it something that you've built as a skill?
I think it's something that I'm good at. So I've learned to nurture it. So I don't think I was born a salesperson. But I think when I was at Groupon and I kind of got sales training, which was actually really good. And you know, now like, you know, we don't get training as much as we used to. But when I did get sales training through my time at Groupon, I kind of understood the elements to it. And I think also kind of coming from a degree in a background in journalism, I like to talk and ask questions. So it's kind of like bringing that all together. And it was through my experience there, I actually realized I was quite good at understanding people's pain points and being able to kind of translate how what I'm offering is of value. And that's really all sales is. You know, you're trying to make people, fix people's problems, but by listening to what their concerns are and how your solution fits.
Yes. Yeah. You're talking, it's interesting you say listening to people, being with people, you know, your first two there, events and referrals, they're very human, they're very high touch events. I love that, right? And until you get, so much more is conveyed in so much less time when we meet face to face. And, you know, I think you talking about events, it's really important because, you know, we can all sit in our remote jobs and do lead generation, lead sourcing, prospecting on our own, but it is cold, and actually doesn't get any better than immersing with your customers, hearing from them, bouncing them around. And so we always advocate, you know, live events in real life events as a really big part of the funnel mix. The way that you set those 7 up, how much have you played with that, refined that? How much have you changed? How much time you invest into each one of those? How have you got to this LVS mix that you've got at the moment?
Oh, good question. So I'm still experimenting. I'm still trying out different things and I'm still trying to see which is going to provide the most value. But then I think it also goes back to pipeline management because that's a secondary part to sales, isn't it? It's like you obviously find the leads, then you have to manage the pipeline. So not everybody is always ready to convert at the time that you're ready to convert. So no leads are wasted, but it's about you know, thinking about what's probably most reactive or what you're going to be able to engage with at the time. So because of that, I would probably say that I would look to optimize probably more referrals and organizations where they're actively supporting businesses in that way, because there's a bit more of an urgency and there's a bit more of a demand. I find with events sometimes it might take a little bit longer because, you know, if you're going to an event, you have your own objectives that you want to meet, and live stream shopping might not be one of them. So you're just adding another thing to whatever it is the person's already thinking about.
Yes.
So there's that. And I think with kind of like manual lead sourcing or kind of like desktop scraping, all of that stuff, naturally they just take longer. So I always think about them being associated to brand building. Like I can reach out now, but actually the more I grow the brand, the more I can kind of go back and kind of like share more and all of this stuff. So I like to think of it in terms of like how I invest my time when I'm thinking about leads. It's like, what can I get within 3 months? What could I get in 6 months? And what could I get in like a year? And I think next year is now, how do I make sure that the strategies that I'm using is also kind of replicating that? But I'm still testing, so I don't have like a definite answer.
But I think that's part of the answer. The fact that you've got these kind of 7 different things that you're very clear on and that you're playing with it. I always visualize them as, you know, slices of the funnel mix. They're little fires, right? They all need to be stoked, and some quarters fire 3 might be delivering better results, so you're feeding it a bit more. But yeah, you have to, even if they go down, you have to keep them on. It's quite difficult. You know, it's not just pipeline management. It's your funnel mix and your lead stuff. You know, and I think for a lot of people that might sound like an awful lot of work. How much time are you spending each kind of day or week? What's the kind of cadence of how you manage these? How many events are you doing? How much time are you doing and looking at listicles? How do you split up your time, and how much time does it cost you a day or a week?
Well, now I'm trying to spend more time on actually outreaching and nurturing. But in terms of the lead sourcing, I would say about 3 months ago, I was probably going to events like 4 or 5 events per week, which is like 1 event per night. So it's also quite exhausting. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would definitely say like now I'm probably trying to look at how I can go to maybe 2 a week, or maybe find the ones where are going to be most optimal in terms of what I'm looking for. And even just in terms of insight, like last week I went to the Plant-Based World Expo in Excel, and not because I wanted to go lead sourcing, but because I just didn't have enough knowledge about plant-based. So I'm like, I'll go, I'll learn, and then next year I'll go and get some leads. So it's just like also kind of like being a bit strategic around how you go to the events and what your aims are from these events. So yeah, I think definitely, I think probably 2 days a week is enough to spend lead sourcing, and then another 2 days like outreaching and actually nurturing and tracking and, you know, managing the operational admin side of things, because yeah, that's another challenge.
That is another challenge, and I think that's a great story. You going to Excel, and you know you're not going to be going after leads this time. This is about immersing and getting used to the community, and then next year you'll go for that. I think that demonstrates the long-term requirements of sales. People, I think, clients come to us, or people on listening to this, watching the recording back, they think like, I want to be able to close something today. Well, the truth is you just can't, right? You have to sow these long-term seeds, which it's a very long waiting game, and it is hard. It's really hard. So
come from sales environments, then you've seen it. You know, I remember there's companies that I worked for where I sourced the lead, and then I left the company, and then I saw it get closed, and I was like, wow, it's been 5 years.
yeah, that's funny. I mean, our last show was on enterprise deals, and you know those sales cycles are really long, and you know a lot of jokes can be made about that. You seem which. It looks like the fact that you're doing the events, right? That feels like do you get a lot of confidence from going to those events and talking to people, and how does that impact the other prospecting things you do?
I think because I work in the live stream shopping space, events are really powerful because I can demonstrate. So I can show live streams, I can show some of the work that we're doing with customers, I can show real life examples, I can talk about brands, I can actually showcase on video. So it's kind of like small demos that I'm able to put together quite quickly. And I found that to be really impactful, rather than just kind of talking about it, because a lot of people don't understand and it's still really new. But if you show them, they're more engaged and they're kind of like a bit intrigued by it. So I think for me, it's definitely a conversation topic. It's easier than just going up to someone, because I can be like, hey, can I show you, introduce myself and be like, can I show you some of the shows, some of the clients that I've worked with? And it kind of gets the ball rolling a little bit.
Completely, a picture might be worth 1,000 words. A live demo is worth 10,000, right? It's so powerful, and I think there's something about sales can be difficult, and the more confident you can be, the better, right? The more confident you are, the more comfortable you are going out there. And so actually going to live events and meeting people and talking to customers and showing them stuff, I always feel like I've had a massive injection of kind of positivity and confidence off the back of the in real life events. And that rolls into the other things I'm looking at, display advertising, even doing the hard yards in terms of, lead sourcing and getting lists together. That benefits from stuff that's in person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, like fascinating to hear about your 7 areas of prospecting, Winnie, and how regularly you're doing them. Certainly the real life events. If anybody is watching or listening and they'd like to continue the discussion with you, how could they find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn, Winnie Akadjo, which will probably be the best place. You can also follow the LVS Hub page on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and you can stay up to date, as well as TikTok. And you can stay up to date with a lot of my videos where I actually talk a lot about my sales strategies, my tactics, and the value proposition of live and video shopping. And you can always send me a message if you want to grab a coffee and talk more in detail.
Fantastic, thanks. And given your sales scoop is about prospecting and generating those leads, what would you be impressed with? What would make a good outreach message to you from somebody here who might be interested? What grabs your attention?
So it has to be, I don't like cheesy. Sometimes people send a lot of cheesy cold messages now, and it's just like, this doesn't even make any sense. So I think less generic, probably not too personalized, because then the other end is like people can get too personalized and it's just like, oh my God, you don't even know me. So there's that component. I think it's being always professional, always looking at the value proposition, and also thinking about the mutual benefits, so if it's supportive of you, how can it also support me? How is it a good use of my time? And how am I going to get out of it? So very much similar stuff. I think although now I see there's so much new tips and tricks and so much new things people always suggest, but I think with sales, there are some things that just need to stay the same and just kind of don't need to be messed around with.
I completely agree. And I think what happens is a lot of people, certainly who are new to sales, if it's not working, they want to change it and actually just have to keep going. You have to put in the yards and keep going. So look, thanks for that. People reach out on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm a big fan of your LVS Hub website, lvshub.com, that I think brilliantly showcases what you do. So you can take a look at that. That's us out of time, Winnie. So thanks for sharing your time and your clear expertise with us in this area. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, good. Look, thanks for your time. Our next show a week today is Kieran and I will be running through the 5 sales foundations you need for next year. Prescient, given we'll be a week away or a month away from the end of the year. Any final predictions or behaviors you'll be having on Black Friday, Winnie, given it's just around the corner and you're an e-commerce expert?
I think a lot of people are going to shop earlier this year.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to avoid the Christmas rush and try to actually get as many presents as they can during Black Friday. So I think we should see, businesses should see a lot of sales. I think a lot of businesses are going to test video over the Christmas period. And perhaps maybe some people will test out live stream shopping as well. So that's exciting to see. And yeah, that's all.
Okay. Well, look, I guess it's not too late. If there's somebody on the call and they were desperate to get some live stream shopping, they should come over to LVS Hub and give you a call right away, right? Given we're short of time. But look, that's really interesting. You heard it here first, folks. Get your shopping done early because there's an early wave of Black Friday stuff coming, says Winnie Akadjo. Winnie, thank you so much. We'll sign off there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.